Be careful that you don't become your abuser. Be careful that you do not become your abuser. Sometimes when you have been used to being in a relationship with someone who was toxic, a person who was disrespectful, a person who was a narcissist, as people will say, you've been exposed to them. You've been exposed to their vitriol for many years. You've been exposed to their nastiness for many years. You've been exposed to their manipulation. You may even learn how to argue back, how to get them back, whether you do that in an open way or you have been passive aggressive. But when you get away from these relationships, you want to make sure that you are healed. You want to make sure you get the counseling that you need. You want to make sure, even though you may have been the victim, you still need counseling because you've been exposed to this person for a long time. And with that exposure, even with that exposure to them, you won't believe how much you will find that you have been conditioned to their way of being. And you may have always lived your life in hyper vigilance, where you are always watching your back. You always have to think and rethink everything they do or say. And with that being said, because you're used to that, if you don't get that healing that you need to realize, hey, you don't need to be suited, you don't need to be in armor around everyone. You don't need to be trying to protect yourself and around everybody all the time. You will become problematic and you will become your abuser. So if someone gives you constructive criticism, you won't be able to process that right because you're used to being with someone who would attack you verbally, who criticized you in a way, basically you're used to being torn down by someone. You won't be able to be in a relationship if you've been with someone or people who cheated on you, abused you, things of that nature. When you're with someone who has never given you a reason to not trust them just doing their normal things, everyday activities, you will suspect them. You will accuse them. You will find yourself being the one that knows how to be cynical. You will be the one that knows how to be insulting. You'll know how to give these offhanded statements and comments to people. You know how to give those subliminal digs, take shots at them, and denying it the whole time. At the same time, you may even play reverse psychology. So it will end up where that person now switches roles. They become you, who you were in the abusive relationship, and you become the abuser. And the way that you're going to say that you're not the abuser is because you're going to think, based on your experiences, you're going to think, well, what you're doing is not as bad as what you experienced. But I can almost guarantee you that your abusers were abused by someone, and in their mind, they may think that they're not treating you as badly as they were treated. Whether it was a parent, whether it was a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a spouse, a fiance, whether it was your siblings, they're going to think they're not doing you as badly. But hurt is hurt and pain is pain. Insults are insults. There's no timeline on it to say, well, I don't do it as bad as you. It's just like saying I didn't burn you as badly. I just gave you a superficial burn versus, a second or a third degree burn. But a burn is a burn. So it's really important that you deal with those things. How can you do that? Well, there are natural means of going to talk to a counselor, to work out, and to discuss and get into the layers of your hurt and your pain and the source of it. And you have to be reprogrammed and learn how to function in society and in normal relationships. You have to be able to be reprogrammed and understand that everyone is not going to always agree with you, and it doesn't mean that they're against you. People don't always have to agree with you. And if they don't agree with you, it doesn't mean that they're attacking you. If they give you constructive criticism, it's constructive. And sometimes even if you have a bad day and you're with a person, you guys have this big argument or something, that's normal. Those things happen in relationships. It does not mean that it's got to be the end of everything and this is the worst person ever. But if you're used to being hurt, if you've been a person that you're used to being attacked all the time, you will go through your life in full body armor all the time, weapons drawn, ready to blast anybody, just tearing down relationships, quick to end friendships, and you'll be hard to work with and to work for, depending on your position. The second thing I would tell you is, and the most important, which I've kept for the last but not least, and most importantly, is prayer. And really asking God to help to heal you. Because some wounds and pains and some mindset will not change just with you having a desire to, but it's going to require really a healing transformation that's going to come only from God through prayer, pouring out before Him and allowing God to heal you. And that takes time. And when the Lord is healing you, you're going to go through all the layers of things that has happened. You face painful things, but He will show you the source and the root of what has caused even those who did you wrong. He'll show you them. He'll show you where you are, how you got there, and how to be set free. And when He does that, He pulls that root out. Your mind, the way you see things, the way you hear things is going to be so different. You'll be able to be in true friendships, true relationships. You'll have the discernment to be able to recognize people who are toxic. You know how to deal with them. You will know how to remove yourself from them without being bitter and hateful, and without passing the baton of that negative behavior to other people. Don't become your abuser. I've seen it a lot. I've seen people who are this way. I've met individuals who are this way. These individuals, they'll tell you things that have happened in their lives, and you listen to them, and you listen to them, and you listen to them. But you'll find sometimes they just want to talk about that stuff. They don't want healing. Other times you may extend yourselves and help these individuals, and they start to abuse you and mistreat you. And when you have to correct them, and when you have to call them out on something, they're going to turn around and you have the victim narrative of what happened to them. And all of a sudden you're the bad guy. You're the bad guy for correcting them. You're the bad guy for pointing out their behavior. They'll do those things, and they will see any sort of correction as an attack. They'll see things as an attack. There are also individuals who, let's put it like this. There are people who will tell you they lived with people and all of a sudden they got kicked out. They'll tell you a story about why they lost their home, why they lost their apartment, why they lost their house, why they lost their job. They'll tell you all these things, and you'll believe them. And you may feel inclined to let them stay at your house, or let them stay in one of your properties, or loan them a car, or help them to get a car. The car may be paid off. All they have to do is maintain the insurance. You may give them or allow them a job. You help them get work. You may have a company. You allow them to work for you. And that same person that was telling you about everything bad that happened to them, you will find they become your problem. They're not doing their job. They're not paying their insurance on the vehicle. They're messing up your property. They're not looking for work. They won't maintain work. All of a sudden you find yourself in this problem with them. And then you're the bad guy for calling them to the carpet. You're the bad guy for expecting them to be responsible and accountable. You're the bad guy for daring to ask them about getting a job and maintaining a job and having a budget. There's people who will ask you, they want you to help them to get a loan and to get money, and they keep borrowing money from you, but they will curse you out if they keep asking you for money and you're wanting to sit down with them and talk about finances and how they could be more responsible, they'll get an attitude with you. Why do you need to know my finances? Why do you need to know how I'm doing this? I don't need you to tell me how to handle my money. But they have no problem taking your money. They will come to you and borrow money, and they want this and they want that, and you will do it. But the minute you're giving them any sort of counsel about life or giving them advice, they will curse you out or cut you off. Some people want to be like, they want to be Wimpy from Popeye for the rest of their life. And if you watch Popeye, the old shows, Wimpy was always wanting to pay someone Tuesday if they buy him a hamburger today. That was his thing. I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. He enjoyed begging and borrowing and taking. Okay, it was a funny thing, but for cartoons, it's awesome, funny, right? But in real life, there are people who are that way. So you have to be able to identify these individuals, people who things happen in their lives and you don't know why they got kicked out of their house. You don't know why they lost their jobs. And because you are caring, you don't realize that this person has been behaving a certain way that led them to where they are. So the lesson there is that you have to be very careful. Even when people come to you with things, you need to take things to God and not be so quick to open up your doors and let people in, because some people are where they're at for a reason. Sometimes rather than letting them in your house, you just need to direct them on where they need to go. Maybe if you can, spot them some money to get started on some things or be able to get some food. But it does not mean that you take on this person. You can't do that with everybody. So getting back to my point, sometimes the person that as I spoke about in the beginning, even to right now, those who always have a victim story and cause problems with other people, a lot of times it's because there are things that they have been exposed to or witnessed or experienced throughout their lives that they never healed. So they take on the entitled mindset. All right, I got kicked out. But what I believe I was saying was, you have to be very mindful of these type of individuals, whether it's the one that expect you to open your wallet, but they don't want counsel or guidance, or those who have been in bad relationships and they carry out this behavior with other people. They become the abuser. This often happens because they are not healed. They leave and all they say is, never again. This will never happen to me again. No one is going to do this to me. I'm never going to allow anyone to do this. And that is a good thing. You have to set boundaries. I'm not saying that we're supposed to allow people to mistreat us. But if there's not healing, if they're not able to look at themselves and say, okay, especially if you've been in abusive relationships, even though your abuser is 100% wrong, you have to take responsibility for staying there, or at least for trying to understand why you stay there. When you get that, then you'll be able to be healed. Healing is necessary because a lot of these people, they may move and go far away, but they keep finding themselves being in the same situations over and over again. Why? Because they are not healed. They have not been restored. They have a lot of junk. They have a lot of baggage. A lot of times they have a lot of hatred and all that stuff in them. And all that's going to do is just keep bringing and attracting the same sort of people to them over and over again. Certain kinds of individuals. So healing is key, and growing and learning. And then once those negative seeds have been taken out of your heart and your mind, then you'll be able to see things clearly, be able to balance your relationships, be able to make decisions, whether it's to keep someone around or you have to limit yourself or even close a door on a relationship and move on. These things are okay, but you just want to have a healthy mindset with it, and not that you're filled with resentment and bitterness and just completely imbalanced because you're still driven by the hurt and the pain. from the past. All right, guys. God bless.